Hello everyone, welcome back to Bootcamp. Today we'll be finishing our quiz app with that we started in the last class. Um, the code has been pushed to GitHub. It's in my GitHub under the quiz repository. Hello, Zasab, Zeeshan, welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, so I've started the app here. So last time we had built out the app so far when we were loading the application. So we had a single button for the begin quiz, and when you clicked on it, we would get the uh, answer choices for the first question. But that's as far as we got last time. So today, what we have to do is update a few of the functions that we created but left blank in the last class, which includes one function that would add the next button and give the functionality for the next button. So what we want is once we click on one of these choices, we want the next button to appear. And then if we click on the next button, we want to be able to see the next question and then continue that process until we've completed all the questions. We also want to update our score. We haven't shown our score either. And then at the end of it, once all the functionality is done, we're going to be using the styled components with this app. So we'll just be able to use some CSS and apply the CSS to this app. So let's get started. Do you guys have anything to add right now, or should I just start?
Just I wanted to summarize the benefits of using TypeScript. The major benefit is that once you know, for example, you know particular variable is a string, and once you know that particular variable is a string, then you can find out what are the different methods and variables that you can call. And the compiler as well as the Visual Studio Code IDE can tell you that what kind of methods can you call. It provides intelligence as well as type checking. That is the main benefit of that. In using intelligence, you can increase the speed of your coding, and compile time checking, you basically get all the errors. Most of the errors are caught before the runtime, that is during the compile time. Otherwise, Java is not a compiled language. It is an interpreted language. So therefore, there is no compile time in JavaScript. But with TypeScript, you get a compile time. So therefore, that is the summary. Let's get into coding.
Okay, so now let me add my screen here. Share. Okay, so here's our application. Let me turn off everything. So here's our app. We had created all of this last time, so I'm not going to review it. You can watch the previous video if you missed it. Okay, so what we want to do now is to look at our app.ts file here. And what we needed to do is to, where's my, here, in this application, what I want to do is to check the answer when I click on it. So because right now nothing's happening. So we created last time a function here to check the answer, but we hadn't done anything. So let's add the functionality. So a couple of things we want to do is first, we only want to run this this check answer function if the quiz is ongoing. So first we'll create a conditional statement here. So we'll say if, and the whether or not the quiz is ongoing is set in this game over variable. So we'll check if not game over, which means the quiz is still underway. Then we want to do some logic. And inside of this logic, what we want to do is get first the value of whatever button we have clicked on. So what we'll do is we'll create a const, and this will store the answer that we've selected, and we'll get the value for this answer from our event dot, and then the current target, its value. So this way we'll store the value of whatever button is clicked into this constant for answer. Then what we want to do is update the question card function. So hold on, let me see what happened here. I have to update this. Hold on, let me just commit this work I did last time. So the code is going to be available in Git in this URL. So my GitHub/quiz. Okay, let's get back to it. So what we want to do is we want to update the value in our, where's my code? Yeah, if we come back to the question card component, we're getting the value here, but what we need is we need to pass the value as well from here, from the button. So we can set the value here equal to the answer. There we go. So that's done. Now what we want to do is we want to check if the answer is the selected answer that the user clicked on is correct or not. So we'll create another, not const. And this will hold the whether or not the user selected the right answer or not. So if they click the right button. So this is going to be like a true and false kind of thing. So what we want to do is for the current question, and we get this by getting the current number index from the questions object. And what we want is we want to get the correct answer from there. And if it's equal to the selected answer. I need to give a name as well. So this will be whether or not it's correct. Okay, so we're just checking if the answer from our API, the correct answer, the one that's indicated in the API, is equal to the answer the user has selected. And then what we want to do is if it's correct, then we want to update the score. So to update the score, we had created the state for the score. So we're just going to use the set score function here. So what we'll do is if this correct is true, so if correct, we'll just update the score. We'll just call the set score function. And the value of it, we're going to use the previous, and we're just going to add 1. So this way, if the user had selected the correct answer, this will be true. And then if it's true, then we'll increment the score by a value of 1. So we have updated the score. What else do we need to do? Let me make sure. Yeah. One other thing we had done is this user answers. We had created an object somewhere. Let me see, where is it? User answers. This user answers, we had created a empty array, and it's meant to store the answers that the user has selected. So that's what we want to do. We just want to update that array with the new value by adding our data. Zeeshan, can I mute? Where is that sound coming from? Zeeshan, okay. So yeah, so what we want to do is we want to update the user answers array. And we'll do this using the set user answers set state method here. So come back, where's our function? Here. So what we'll do is we'll create another object for the user's answers. I think we called it answer object before. So we'll create a const for this, and inside of it, we'll create a object here. And what we'll add here is question. The question will be, we'll get from the questions data we have, and then we'll use the number index, and we'll get the actual question from here. So we have the question. Also, what we want to get is the answer. So the answer the user is provided, and the correct, if it's correct or not, and then the correct answer. Correct. It's correct answer. And this is also coming from the questions from the index number, and this is we're getting from the correct answer. So this all data is coming from our API. Right. So now we have created this object which stores the user's selected answer into this answer object. And then what we want to do is we want to use this data, this object, to update the user answers state. So we'll use the set users answers. So if you come down, after we've created this, we'll call the set user answers. And inside of it, what we want to do is use the previous state. And then what we want to do is get the previous data, spread it out. So the previous array, spread it out, and then add the new data inside of it. So to do this, we'll call the previous array and do the spread function. And then we'll call the previous like this. And then we'll add in our answer, the one that we have just built for this check answer function. Right. So this will update our state, and we'll be able to keep a history of all the users' selected answers. Right. So now that we've done all this, let's go and check our app, because now we've updated the check answer function. Let's come here, click begin. So once we've clicked the one of the answers, it allows us to go to the next question now. Actually, it doesn't allow us to go to the next question, but it shows us the next button. Why don't we be able to click the next button? Because we haven't yet updated our next question function, right? So that's the next thing we have to do. So inside of our next question function, so this is triggered every time we click the next button. So if you look at the next button, on the click, it executes the next button. So that's why nothing is happening. Let's come back and update this function. Okay, so first, what we want to do is, because the next button is clicked, we want to update the number. So the number in our state, this is what's being used to display the question. So we'll update the number. So we want to do const next question. And what we'll do is update number. So number plus 1. This will be the value of the next question. Now we want to apply some logic here. And what we're trying to do is, because there's 10 questions being answered, until question number 9, there's going to be another question that comes afterwards. So on the last question, there's not going to be any more questions. So if it's not the last question, then we continue incrementing to the next question and showing the next question. But if it's the last question, what we want to do is indicate that the quiz is over, and basically so the user can restart the quiz. And we can't show another question because there isn't going to be a next question. So here we'll create some conditional logic again. So if the next question is the total questions, then what we'll do is we'll set game over to true. So this will indicate that the quiz is now over. And then if it's not equal, then what we want to do is we want to set the number to the value of next question. This will update the value of our question, and the value of the question determines which question is being displayed. So we can now click the next button, and then the question displayed will be updated. And if we keep going to the very last question, now instead of showing the next button, now we've been able to restart the quiz again. So we can say begin. So that function is updated. Now our score isn't being updated here. So now we can update the score as well. First, we want to show the score. So inside our place here, we weren't showing the score. So the score is available in the score. Now it will have 0 here. So every time now we select the right answer, we'll get a, I think it's Joey. So you got 2. What does MP? That's a good question. Is it? I don't even know. These are hard questions. There, so the score increments every time you get something right. Okay, so that's all the functionality is done. Now we just have to update the UI. Right, okay. All right, so to update the UI, we're using style components in this project. So what we can do is we'll create, so we have two components. We have the app and then the question card. So we'll create two different style files. One
Adil, why
for
don't you go ahead first, do a commit.
okay.
And show everybody which repository they can go ahead and take a look at the code.
Come to this one. I'll add it to the screen. Where's my, oh, banners. So this one. Right. Okay, should I continue now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so now what we want to do is apply some CSS styles to the UI because it's kind of basic. So first we can add some styles to our main app component. So here in our source folder, we can add a file and we can call it app.styles.ts. So we want to save some time. What I had done is previously just if I go to documents, here, where did I save it? Is that maybe? Yeah, so this file, so I'm just gonna get this code and paste it here. Just review what happened inside of this. So we're just importing style and a create global style from our style components, which we installed early when we started the project. So what this is doing, it's getting these to from the style components, and then we're using them inside. So first we created a global style which applies everywhere, and just a simple CSS code for the HTML, for the body, for all, and then another CSS for a wrapper object or a wrapper div. And then inside of that, there's just some CSS code for all the different classes or the different elements. So for paragraphs inside the div, for the score, for the h1 element, and then for the start and next buttons. So this is just some CSS. And then what we want to do is we want to apply this to our app.ts. So here we'll import the global style, from our app.styles.ts. From app.styles. So, but this won't really update the code yet because we haven't updated the div as well. We want to create the so updated the global style. Now what we want to do is we want to add the global style into our return statement Where is our return here? So here what we want to do is add our global style. So a global style component here. But we want to also end our global style. Oh, no, we don't want to end this. Sorry, we don't want to end the global style. We want to do one more thing. We want to put this whole thing into a single fragment. So because return can only return one element, so we put everything into a single fragment now. So now we've applied our global style. So this should be updated to a navy background. And then the other thing that we want to do is in our style sheet, we also have a wrapper. So this wrapper is for the remaining content. So all of this. So here I want to add my wrapper. And then also when the div is ending, it should end with the wrapper. Oh, I had an imported wrapper. Compile. Okay. And then here now you have the CSS applied. So the h1 element is applied, and then the button for the begin. Okay. Now we haven't styled the question card component. So we have styled the app.ts, but not the question card. So we can apply our styles to that as well. So we can leave the app styles and come to our question card component here. So similarly, we'll need another question card.styles.ts. This file, and I have code for this here. So here, same thing, we're importing style from the style components. And then we're creating the wrapper style. And then here, one additional thing going on here for our button, because we have some conditions here, we want to apply some different conditions on whether or not the selected answer is correct. This button requires some inputs. So it requires two input arguments. One is if it's the correct, and one is if the user clicked on it. And then that logic is used inside our background for the div for our button. And if it's the correct answer, then it gives it a green color. If it's not correct, it gives it a incorrect. So that logic is being done here, and the rest of it is just appearance. And similarly, we want to again apply that code here. So we'll import. One is our wrapper, and then the other is the button wrapper. Button wrapper from question card. Oops. Question card.styles. So that's imported now. And then we want to apply that wrapper into our return. So instead of having the div, now we will have the wrapper. So this will be using our entire CSS from here. And now we want to also apply the button wrapper. So the button wrapper is styled for this button. So instead of having the div, we'll have the button wrapper. Button wrapper. And we close it as well. And this will now give us some error. It should. Yeah, because we were supposed to give this some input values here. I think it's still, yeah, there we go. So it's looking for some properties. So now what we want to do is we want to give it the inputs for the correct and the user answer, the ones that we in here, we're using correct and the user clicked, these two values it needs. Okay. So inside of this, here we can create, you need correct and the user clicked, right? Those are the two values. So for correct, we want the user answer, and if it's there or not. So here there is in TypeScript there is something called optional chaining. So if the user had clicked on it, then this will work. If not, it will give an undefined value. And we want the correct answer. So that is equal to the answer. So this will be like a Boolean value. If whatever value the user clicks is correct or not. And then if the user even clicked or not. So for this, we'll do user answer dot answer equals answer. And now we've passed in the two values. This should now work. No issues here. Where's my? So if we begin the quiz, oops. There we go. So now the CSS is applied to the question card itself, which Ramstein is from Germany. I know this one. Dorothy's name in Wizard of Oz. How many countries is the two? Which tire manufacturer is famous for its V0 line? Michelin? Ah, okay. Which franchise was not featured in Lego Dimensions? That should be right, because you don't want kids playing with the Breaking Bad Legos. How tall is Burj Khalifa? Okay. Call of Duty is developed by Infinity, not Treyarch. Okay. Lowest atomic number. Helium?
I think we.
Oh. All right, we're done. So I got 5.
Okay. Why don't you why don't you commit the code and show the URL once again, and then we will go over to Zeeshan and he will complete the main points left with TypeScript.
Okay.
Sure.
Commit to master and push. So this code will then be available here.
Perfect.
Done. Zeeshan, over to you.
Just okay. Just a moment. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so last time we were at the chapter 3 and we were discussing the objects, and I showed you the example, this example. The way we can create an object, it's in a simple JSON object, the way we create in what you say in JSON normal JavaScript. So in TypeScript you can also create an object like this, but you have an option that you create, define a variable, and then you specify the properties you wanted to receive in that particular object. So let's say first name colon string, email colon string. So we are saying that this object should contain two properties. So in this way, when I'll try to create this assign value to this object, it must have two properties. Okay, so let's say console.log obj2 dot first name. This PST, compile it. And then okay, so it's mentioning the property. Now what we can do is with the objects or with the TypeScript, what we have option is we can define types with our own name, and we can use those types. Let's say yes, this is the one. Type age equals to number. So this way what we are trying to do is we are trying to create our own type. We are giving it a name age, and this type will be of this my type age will have the properties of number, all the properties of number. So instead of creating a variable with the type number, I can create a variable of my own, type of my own, and then you can use it. Similarly, I can create a type like my object. So I created a type person equals curly bracket, and I mentioned two properties name and age. So this way I am creating an object. I'm defining an object that there can be an object which contains two properties. So let me create this. Let age equals number. Just a moment. Age equals number. Only refer to type, but it is being used as a value. Type. Okay. Type age. Now this is my type. What I can do is I can let hello or let abc colon age equals to 56. console.log. So that's my type of my ABC variable. So if you can see, it is similar to what you say a type of number, but you have an advantage of defining your own type, so you can create a custom types with multiple properties in a single object. So that's why you can have type person equals to object. Now you are defining your object, that if someone try to create an object of a person, that object should will have these two properties or one property, whatever you want to assign. So
Zishan,
name and
Zishan,
then age.
what's the difference between
Yes.
defining a type and what you were mentioning before?
uh, what I was mentioning before,
Where you said
the problem
the
is the
hmm,
yes.
where you were basically creating a object with saying these were the types,
Hmm.
and by defining a separate type, what is the difference?
The difference is, by defining a type, what we can do is we can name a type while creating a variable. So after creating a person type, what I can do is let uh, human colon person. So I can define, just a moment. I can define a variable like this. So I'm saying I have a variable human. It has a type person. So I can identify with the types. The previous in the previous style, it was just mentioning two or three properties. There is no specifically name for that type of object. So you can mention and reuse in future easily. To I just mention within one name.
Very nice, very nice.
Okay. So now what I'm, let's say I try to add name property and use it 34. So it will say that name property is not assignable because it is a string. So as it is string, so I must have to mention it as a string, and I have mentioned only one property, so it's also giving me an error still, and it is saying that property age is missing. So it's asking that age property is missing, so you must have to define age property as well. So what I'll do is age 54. Now it is not giving me any error. If I want to create an optional type, let's say email, now it's still giving me error. So what I can do is email question mark. So this property becomes optional. So I can create a person type, and then I can use only two properties. If I want to add third property, it's allowed. If I don't want to add third properties, TypeScript will not give me an error because I mark him with question mark. That means this property is optional. If provided, well and good. Not provided, there will be no issue. This is how you can create custom types for your object, and you can then assign this type and use wherever you want to use such objects. So it's quite useful in our application. Again, you can see type color equals to red, and you cannot redefine because it's not JavaScript, it's TypeScript. So if you're trying to define type twice, it will give you an error because it's duplicate color equals to red. So you cannot define it again. That's a simple, understandable as we understand TypeScript. Okay. Arrays. Arrays is as simple as that. Still, again, you can define types with array, so that the array become what you say type specific, and you don't have to verify again and again. Let's say I create let arr colon number square bracket equals to square bracket, and I'll say so. That's how array is being created. But if I try to use string in between, it will start giving me an error. So this is the only difference in arrays between TypeScript and JavaScript, because TypeScript array is typed specific, so you cannot specify type. Again, if I'll remove this, it will also work, but a ARR one on the one index, if I try to add a string, it will give me error, because as we have discussed in the first class of TypeScript, that if you specify the type specifically, then that will be the type. If you do not specify, it will implicitly identify with the data type you have provided. So with this line, TypeScript assume that this ARR has an array, and it should be a number of array of numbers. So if you try to update that variable, you will not have you will not be able to change it with the any other data type. Only numbers are allowed. So that's how you use the array.
Zeeshan, can I ask a question? What if you
Yes.
explicitly gave a type of any? Would that work? Or
Sorry.
should you do that? What if you gave a type of any? Would that work, or should you do
Yeah.
that?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Then it will work. There will be no issue.
Okay. And then you can have
I
mixed
have.
values in the array.
Yes. Yes. You can see this. With any is also is giving to address such kind of questions. Because definitely we are coming from JavaScript, so
Yeah.
using the TypeScript will face these things. So definitely we'll need to address these. Okay, so this is how arrays are being used. Another good thing is tuple. What tuple is basically, it's an array, but it's in a specified array. So what you can do is you can specify different data types for each index, so that array will be on that particular size, and on only those particular variables can be used inside it. Let's say let a equals square bracket number. That means this is an array. It has only one index, and that particular index should have numbers only. Let b colon square bracket string number. That means it should be an array, and it should have only three indexes. First index should be string, second index should be string, third index should be number. So that's how you can work with the tuples. So let's say let arr and square bracket number comma string. So now what I can do is I can add 45 hello, but if I try to add third element, it will give me error. Okay, so you can create tuple like this, and this will be helpful in sometimes you can return array from your functions also, but sometimes when sometimes you need to return multiple values from an object, like we have hook. In hook we need to return to only two properties. One should be number. React hooks we have used use state, and use reducer. We have multiple times we use hooks. So it returns an array or array of only two elements. One is a number and one is in a variable, and another one is in function. So you can use in tuples in such cases. Read-only array, you just need to mention read-only before the variable, so that it will become read-only array, and you can it will not be, you will not be able to change it. Okay, so cannot find read-only. That is, oh, cannot find read-only. Kind of error it is. Let ARR read-only. Read only. Should be working as it's mentioned here. If you mark variable as read only and provide number array and provide any value, then if you try to update the array, it will not allow you, it will give you error just as it's mentioned. It should be working, and it was working previously, so I don't know why it's giving error at this moment. So let me try one more time. Set number any read only. Okay, let's leave it. So it's here. You can practice it. I'll try to run it again, and we'll see. I'll next class or somewhere some other time I'll show you how it works. Otherwise, it's the syntax is correct. It should be working as it is. Okay. Function are in chapter 4, so we are moving on. We'll move on that. There are different types: null, undefined, void, never. So null, we know null and undefined. Void, whenever function returns nothing. So if you are in a typed language, if your function is returning nothing, it should be returning something, so that something is void. That means it's nothing. Null and undefined, and never means a function which never returns. That means a function continuously executing a loop or something. So it's only mentioning over here. Enums. Enum is important in sometimes when you want to provide states in your language of your uh, in your code. You want to provide states like we have. Let's say in case of our quiz application we have created a moment ago, we have a state, we have a difficulty level. So you can say difficulty level of difficult, easy, medium. You can create these states with the enum. And the benefit of it is that you don't need to mention a string again and again. You just mention this value, and it uses the number behind the scene. So comparison is done in number. So because comparison done is number, it's easy and fast instead of comparison on string. So enum let's say the language, and I'll say English. Do French. This is how we provide these properties, and whenever we want to use it, what we can do is simply, let's say console.log, I'll say language.urdu. If I'll try to run, you can see it returns 1. So why 1? Because if you do not provide any value to enum, first property is 0, second property is 1, and third property is 2. If there is another one, that will be 3. So by default, it gives you 0, 1, 2, 3. And instead of comparing numbers, instead of comparing strings, you just mention language.urdu. So it's easy to identify that I want to compare Urdu. And you can compare two properties. So for user, it's quite easy to mention the word. For programmatically, for software, for code, it's good to comparison based on numbers. That's why it's quite easy. Now what we can do is we can change the numbers, whatever number I want. I need to first compile it. 250. So for Urdu it's 250. So you can specify your own numbering, or you can use the default numbering. That's up to you. Enum is not by default available in JavaScript, so that's why TypeScript is giving us this option. You can see this. Okay, so next. Okay, moving on to functions. Okay, functions are again exactly similar as we have learned in JavaScript. Only additional thing is typing on functions, and there is some interesting things with that. Okay, so function, let's say do some work, okay, or maybe add. I name it add, and now I want a comma b, return a plus b. So it's asking me parameter A is implicitly has any type. It is saying parameter A is implicitly any type. And that means it's type of any. So what you need to do is you need to specify type at the time of declaring a function. So what I can do is I can do a number. Now it's fine. And what I can do is I can call console.log 12. So that's how I can define the data type of parameters, and I can also define the type of return data type, as it's asking A as a number. So if I try to provide the string, it will give me error, as we know, and should be our sections now. Okay, so colon number, that's our return type. Now if I try to return a string from this function, it will give me error because it says hello is not assignable to type number, because the return type of function is number. So again TypeScript restricts you to type specific, so that there should not be any problem during the application. Sometimes functions return numbers, sometimes functions return strings. It should always be returning numbers, so there will be no mishap, no surprises that sometime you might receive any other value. That's why typing is the most important thing. Okay, that's basic of function. And what you can do with the function is another thing. Mm, uh, yes, you can specify type of a function. So what you can do is check this out. Type greet equals to name string square bracket. So basically you are defining a type of a function. Up till now we have seen, or if you have seen any other programming languages, we create types, we have a variables in which we can hold properties. But JavaScript, not TypeScript, in JavaScript, function is also can be hold in a variable. So again, TypeScript also allow you to create function signature as a type, so that you can create function based on that type. So as you can see, I'm creating a type greet. It should accept parameter as name, type of a string, and it should return a string. So I'm creating a data type of a function, so that that function should accept a string and return a string. And so I'm creating defining a signature, and anyone can implement that signature. So let's say I add num1 colon number, comma num2 colon number, and let me just so that it number. This is a signature. It means we have created a function signature, and that is assigned in an add. Now what I can do is I can let my add colon add equals to num colon number and num1. Name of variable does not matter, so do not confuse with that. Number and at this moment I just mentioned these two things, and let's see what error it gives me. It says type num number num2 greater than void is not assignable, because that type because we are using type add, and I have mentioned the type add over here. So it says that you are using a type which requires a return type as number. So you need to mention that number over here as well, and then you need to return definitely num1 plus num2. What is um, syntax sometimes cause problems. So you are creating a type add equals round bracket is for parameters. So you are creating a function which requires two parameters and returning a number. Now I am defining a actually creating a function based on that signature. So we can use, and now it's defined. I can call this my add and provide two values. That's how you can initially create type of your functions, and then you can define this function. The benefit of that is if you are trying to create a string, so it's always helpful while you are creating APIs, so that and everybody knows what kind of function signature and return types available in your project. So whenever you are creating working on a typing based application, static types, you will definitely need such a signature, so that user knows what kind of function it is and what it is returning. Okay, so that's how you can create typing and polymorphism function. Uh, the good thing is polymorphism. It's the last thing. I'll just discuss it, implement it, and then we'll finish off. Uh, what happens is whenever you try to create a function and you want function should be same, implementation logic should be same, but the variable data type of variable can be different. Let's say sometimes you want to operate on array of number, same operation needs to be done, can be done array of boolean, same operation can be done array of string. So what you have to do is, in case of TypeScript, you have to create multiple functions, so that if you provide a string, so it works as for the string. If you provide numbers, it works as a work for the numbers. So instead of doing that and creating multiple types like array, number, array of a string, so you need to create multiple functions. So instead of doing that, you create a generic types. So what generic type does is this is how you create a generic type. Either you provide this t here, or either you provide this t at the top. So what it can do is, you are creating a function. You say type filter uh, equals curly brackets, and you are saying a generic type. So whatever type you will provide over here, let's say you will provide number, so it will work for it as a number. It's called a generic types. So your function will work for the as a number function. If you provide a string, your function will work as a string type of a function. So let's say type filter. Now you want to accept a property, so let's say name colon t. Now instead of providing a string, number, boolean, anything else, I am providing a letter t. Why? Because I have mentioned my generic data type in two less than greater than sign as a t. What I can do is I can say u and I can mention over as u. So it's upon you what type of variable you use, letter you use. Generally, because it's in a generic type, so it's used with the t. And I'm saying that its return type is also t. Now, what we can do is that's we have created a type of a function. Now we can define that type. So let's say let variable name and define it. Let my filter colon filter, I'll say number equals name colon number. So at this time, what's happening is I'm creating a function with a specific type and mentioning a type at this moment. So it will be a number data type. Now I can, if I try to change it to string, it will give me an error. This is when you are defining a typing or API based. There is another option which I'll mention you. So I have defined a type that your API or function should be like this, and you can create function afterwards like this. So what will happen is you are creating a function with a specific data type. There is another option, because for that what you need to do is you need to create another function like this, and you need to mention the string. My filter 2. So now you have created two functions based on single defined type. So that's a signature or interface type which will be exposed to external users, and then you can use these two functions to call to define a function, and then you can use it. There is another option to, while creating a function, what you can do is function my data p num colon t. Return t. And now at this moment, just okay, so this is my function, my data, and I created it as a generic type. So what I can do is at the time of calling my data, I can mention number, and then I can provide value as a number. So the benefit is I can use the same function with different data types. This is how you can use the same function with multiple data types. So that's a generic functions. So basically functions are the same, but the utility based on typing, there are a lot of things which needs to be understand slowly and gradually, and these are the top most things needs to be understand in this functional way. Generic types.
Okay, thank you so much, Zeeshan. Now, some good news.
Yes, I think that's it.
That's it.
Mhm.
In the next class, we will start covering progressive web apps. And there is another good news. Daniyal Nogori is back in form. He will be joining us to teaching the classes from next class, and we will have a team of 4. So we will start covering PWA from the next class. Soon, another form will appear, how to submit your quiz app, and it will be on our website. And then you will be able to submit all the other projects as well as quiz apps. Thank you so much. Bye bye, everyone. See you next time. Thank you.